course they're real. Hello. Welcome back to the frost and the hail and the sleet and the snow and winter. It's Christmas. Says there's a star. Now, whenever I see one of them, you say, I see a pentagram. You probably see a star.
I see a star.
Fire, water, earth, sky, spirit. Get out of that.
Meet again.
Oh dear. This is the very, very famous Whitby Whale Arch. Now, I think it was in the 1863. Yeah, we're good. 1863. The jawbones of a whale. One of the whales captured off the northeast coast. Whitby had 55 whaling ships based here. And the best harpooners in the world came from either Holland or Scandinavia. The Dutch harpooners were world renowned. But we're here to tell you the darker, scarier, unorthodox tales of Dark Whitby on episode numero 2, Scary Christmas. Now, interesting story. And this one, I actually had to check Dutch historical records to find. I typed it in, nothing came up. People who died whilst whaling off Whitby. Nothing came up. However, if you look on the Dutch whaling websites, you will find the story of a man called Jan Leuvens. Now, Jan Leuvens was one of the greatest harpoonists of his generation. Now, you've got to remember, you're on board a ship that's smaller than the thing you're trying to kill. So we're talking immense courage here. And Jan apparently was right on the front of the vessel. They built a special platform, and this was long before you had like a gun to fire it. Yeah. A lot of these were hand harpoons, and you had to get half a dozen in on the beast to restrain and kill him. Now, Jan apparently we got Kenny Dick here, did a bit of Moby Dicking, because apparently he lost his balance when he was throwing it. And of course, once you throw it, the rope behind it follows it into the beast. And I don't want anybody to kill whales, not at all. However, this is just what happened back then. However, when he realized that he was losing his balance, to stay on board the ship, automatically he put his leg out. As soon as he's put his leg out, the rope that was going into the whale took him, and it flipped him upside down off the boat into the whale. Now, he wasn't against the whale was trying to get away. It went straight down, he went straight down with it. When the whale came up, he was gone, and his body was never seen from again. And it said that the average life expectancy of a harpoonist was between 18 months to 2 years. So, quite a career. Whitby has so many things. We have to go across here, and then I've got a story of a pirate called Bodge to tell you about. Oh, hang on a second.
Captain Cook.
We nearly forgot the captain. Now, the thing that a lot of people don't realise about this gentleman, apart from the fact that he's there in totality with his, whoa, watch this. Watch this. This is very slippy. Calipers in hand so he can work out the navigation of the ships. He is completely in one piece, totally uneaten. Last time we were talking about him, we mentioned that some of the greatest voyages of exploration of all time, from 1768 right the way through to 1780, when he got eaten. And there you go. I thought we nearly lost Tony there. There he goes. He died in 1779, and there he stands. That's the Pacific Ocean in the middle, because he conquered it.
I like that.
What a lot of people don't realise is, though, that the museum here in Whitby was once his house.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like that. From this discovery emerged a nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
How icy is it here?
This is
oh my word.
That's not funny, that kind of ice. That's puddly ice. That's the Resolution. The Endeavour was his later ship That was the one that went to Australia and New Zealand.
Right. How slippy is this?
Now you see, if I was a Haitian Islander, I'd be looking up at that and thinking, the thighs need to be a little fatter. Hopefully he's put on a bit of weight since they did that. But it's along here. There's another story. We did a ghost hunt in Hartlepool recently. And if you remember the stories, Hartlepool suffered a bombardment of a German warship. Well, the same thing happened here, but it was in the Second World War. The bombardment of Hartlepool was in the First World War. Ow. Oh, just felt my knee go twang there. That wasn't good. Oh, anyway, behind or just to the right of this house, this little building up here, this is a part of Whitby that during the day you've got to come to, because all of that sea, I know you can't see it, but everything that's black out there is the North Sea.
There's a much better grip on the grass, Alan.
Is there? I just don't want my shoes to be as wet as they were the last time we took a trip out. Oh, there it is, I see it. There it is there. Whoa. Now there's a Victorian ghost story about that building there. It's right out on the coast. There's the story of it's kind of a tragedy. I'll tell you about that in a second, but first, there's the sea roaring in, and here,
Get that.
should go around the front really.
That is crazy.
Go around the front.
That, mind.
Watch your step. No, I bet you didn't. A lot of people don't even know this is here.
Nah. Look at that, the clock on the mantelpiece and everything. Fireplace, clock on the mantelpiece, and there's your bomb.
There's a bomb right in front of the fire. There's the front door. Hello, Mrs. Thompson. In a little kind of house, just like the houses that I grew up in.
Yeah.
A terrace of houses. Now, why is this as it is? Why the hell is there a bomb there? It's a little post box outside for donations as well, which is nice. These were like the downstairs house bit. You'd usually have your living room that we used to call the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And then next door you'd have your scullery, which you would probably call a kitchen.
Scullery? Yeah.
And the story is told on here. 5 minutes past 9 o'clock when the enemy ships opened fire. Over 100 shells were fired into Whitby town. 2 persons killed. Many people had extraordinary escapes. Coast Guard was shot dead. They fired non-stop for 10 minutes. And only 2 deaths. But in memory of those 2 people, they decided to leave the old-fashioned house with the old-fashioned door and a bomb in the living room, because that's what they were aiming for. And there it is, right there. Incredible. Oh, be careful, it's very slippy. Icy as hell on the concrete.
Isn't that crazy?
Mate, it's amazing up here.
You just don't expect to see that, do you, though?
Who's he, Kenny?
Oh. A fisherman of some
Yeah,
kind,
it's
must
another
be.
lobster man. Lobster
Look at the sea coming in,
man.
how cold is that?
Yeah, freezing up here. Lobster man. Brilliant, these sculptures, mind, have to say.
Oh. More
And he's actually dressed in a military uniform, and there's the tin hat. This is Skipper Dora. Fantastic, isn't it?
That's brilliant.
It is amazing. But just to finish off
Crab on his feet.
her feet, if you don't mind. It's Dora.
It's Dora.
Dora
sorry.
the Explorer.
Yeah.
Now you see this Victorian house over yonder.
Yeah.
There's one mild ghost story attached to it.
Ooh.
And it's not actually a story like a blood-lusty kind of story. It's a tragedy more than anything. That house over there, the man who owned it was again in charge of port entries and exits, you know, what was allowed up into the harbour and not, like a harbour master kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was said that he had 2 daughters, and he said they were the most beautiful, well, like any dad would, they're the most beautiful women that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I shall only give their hand in marriage to the most handsome and most deserving of mankind, otherwise they will never marry. And he stopped them from getting married. And they both died and never married.
Oh.
And they spent their whole life in there, barely ever going. Did you see that, Kenny?
I saw a movement there.
There was movement in the window. That window there, right? The big doubler.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah?
There's no one in there, though.
No,
is
no,
there?
I don't know. I don't know what it's used for now, but
No, there's no
that was the story anyway. And it said that they live on the top floor like they always did right the way through their lives,
Yeah.
and they never married. And the reason that the building is to this day very downbeat and unhappy
Yeah.
is because they met many a man that they could have dallied with, but they
he
never
wouldn't
got
let
the
them.
chance because the father was too roughy-tufty.
Oh, man.
Anyway, let's get back. I've got to tell you the story of a smuggler called Bodge. And Bodge was quite a guy, so let's find you.
Oh my God, you can't even go up the hill. Just walk on the.
Oh, yeah, don't
Nearly.
even think about it.
That's the nearest. Oh my God, you can't even walk on here. Oh, I can't even walk. This is ridiculous.
You have no perception in how icy it is here. You could skate.
Oh my God.
Kenny, come and help us out.
Come on, what is this?
Pentagram, pentagram. At 12 o'clock on Christmas Eve, she tiptoed up the stairs. She stood beneath the mistletoe and combed her golden hair when Santa Claus came down the flue and caught her unaware. And this is what she said. Whoa, Father Christmas, do not touch me. Father Christmas, do not touch me. Father
what?
Christmas, do not touch me, as she stood beneath the mistletoe.
Hey.
Oh, me name is Father Christmas. He informed her as he better. He said, I don't like little girls. Bigger ones are better. Oh.
Johnny's
But
thinking,
she says,
what?
it's been 7 years since I sent you a letter. And this is what she said. Whoa, Father Christmas, do not touch me.
Now they're missing me off, don't they?
Only after you finish the first verse.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, it goes, Father Christmas, do not touch. Father Christmas, do not. Father Christmas, do. Father Christmas.
And it
Excellent.
goes, Father. And the baby goes, Father.
Excellent.
Oh, man.
Happy memories.
Dear me. Was that the goodies?
Yes, it was.
The goodies. People are going to be Googling that now, aren't they? Saying,
Yeah,
what
Google
song
it.
is that?
It's a better version than I did by a
Yeah.
mile. Oh, hang on, stick on
The
this, I think.
goodies, Father Christmas, do not touch me.
It was the B-side
It was.
of...
Was it,
It was their first hit, which was called The In-Betweenies.
was it Goodies? Goody, goody.
No, 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 that was
No,
the theme tune.
Theme tune, wasn't it?
No, it was The In-Betweenies, I think. It's a
right.
story about people that aren't young and aren't old, the In-Betweenies.
Right, yeah.
And then after that, that hit with Black Pudding Bertha.
That's right. Dear me.
Oh, and there's
She's
the
Queen Northern Soul.
amazing
Queen Northern
Whitby Abbey behind. Now, I know you're going to think it's a hell of a long way to climb up the cliff just to do what Al did. But on a sunny day,
Yeah, in the summer.
this would be stunning. And there's a bench in memory of somebody. We should give them a mention.
Yeah.
Sophie Lancaster and Angel Too Soon. Now, the fact that a family keep this up,
Yeah.
I think, is a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And absolute respect to the Lancaster family. 86, 40, she was 21. No age. No age at all. It's funny because somebody that Tony and I knew, we just found out died of cancer recently. It's a lady that helped us out do a lot of our ghost hunts on the radio. Lovely, beautiful, kind soul called Caroline Keith. I'm going to dedicate these shows to her because she was beautiful and we love her. We miss her. Oh, dear.
Oh.
Right.
This is where we go. We're not going down there. We're not going down there.
Well, we have to.
That's a massive mistake going down there.
Well, the
It's just
stairs
turning
here, you
into
see.
Your ace now.
On the stairs here. Well, we'll have to go right to the end and then around again.
Yeah, that's the stairs there.
There's no stairs here. They're the stairs down, I think. I do think we are maybe missing a trick too. Do you think? You think?
The stairs are down there, aren't they?
Where? Yeah, the next thing down. Yeah. That's why I thought we'd go down those other things.
No, this isn't the best, like.
No, I think we go the other way. Let's go the other way.
It's like an ice rink now. It's just. But that way you can't get down there. You'll slide all the way down that. We'll have to go around the grass. I think.
Okay, well okay. I think it's every man for himself, frankly. The great thing is that you're overlooking, completely overlooking Whitby here. Whichever way we do this, we're going to... I know where the tunnel is, but are these the stairs down here? Oh, you are right, Tony. I stand corrected. And there's Bodger's Hole. I think we're going to need to hold the handle. Oh, jeepers. This isn't funny. Oh, but hands are just like ice on. Have no doubts, this is life-threatening, this sucker. You need to hold on to this, Tony, when you come down, mate. Blame me if I can, you can. How, man. Get it done. It is by far the coldest, and we've done, Tony and I have worked in Lapland, where it was minus 27. Wasn't as icy and cold as this. And I don't know how that is, but it wasn't. Tony, do you remember when we were in Lapland? It wasn't as cold as this.
Was it -6?
It was minus 27 in Lapland and it felt warmer than this, but they gave us suits and stuff.
Yeah.
Put a pair of skis on, that would work. This down here. Now back in the day, we're talking 1700s, what people used to do if they couldn't afford boarding anywhere, they would dig a hole in the side of the hill and build a. They didn't build that. That's obviously stone built, but it's built where the tunnel was, and it was like a grassy thing, and he'd pull all the grass back, climb inside, and be warm and snug, a damn sight warmer than we were. But the story about Bodge is, Bodge was a smuggler, and what he used to do was he used to meet boats and say, if you give me that, give me 5% and I'll go and sell them for you. And he'd go around the taverns and the inns, or if it was jewellery or if it was pewter, if it was like plates, knives and forks were of a premium because not everybody had them. And some, even if you were in quite a posh house, you would have a fork.
Right. Yeah.
This is my fork.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have like a canteen of cutlery like we see now. So Bodge would go around selling all of this stuff. However, one day, some military people were coming up to visit. Now, they said a government official, so I presume it was that house where the harbour master was. That makes sense. The pavilion over here is also said to be haunted. However, Bodge selling stuff, these people marching up the hill, presumably the way that we came, that way, when they got around here, they heard clanging and banging from the greenery. And they kind of looked in and went, what's all that noise? Well, he was keeping his stock in his hole. Right. This is the hole. Right. So they moved back a few trees, dragged him out, and hung him on a tree that was, well, the only trees I can see are these ones here. I don't know whether they're the originals or not. They don't particularly look very hangy to me, but presumably back in the day there were a lot more trees, probably trees along here too. Yeah. So they just hanged him. And then they realised that there was a fortune in stuff. There was booze and there were barrels and kegs. And apparently the two members of the military said, leave this with me, we'll come back and sort it. So the sergeant headed off, so now we'll take care of that. The sergeant and one of his men came back in their own time and started a little smuggling operation of their own. Yeah. So that's what happened here. They made a little tunnel out of it that leads all the way down, which is probably going to be at least as dangerous as what we've just done. But can you imagine this being your hidey hole? And if you think about it, it's freezing cold now. And look, there's no water in it at all. So back in the day, there wouldn't have been either. And of course, if you left it enough, even this would close it up, wouldn't it? You know, you know this?
No, we are not going down there.
I don't think Tony's seen this. But I think, you not think you can manage? It takes us back to the...
Well, I mean, as long as we hold on.
I think that's...
Be careful, I'm getting spit before.
Well, just keep a hold. Keep a had. It's the quickest way between points A and B, absolutely. No. Saying out. Press on. You actually want to be on the south side because it's a wider step. We're nearly down though, we're nearly down. We're coming to the Pierre Cottage, do you remember? We're at the back of.
Yeah.
And this used to be cobbles all the way up. And the other bit of cobbles goes up yonder. See? Tell you, man. Stick with the blade. You'll not go too wrong. Last bit. There you go. Happy days. Now, the reason I wanted to bring you down here was for a reason. You know, on the cliff top we saw Skipper Dora.
Yeah.
And we saw her next to the bombed house.
Yeah.
This is where Dora used to live. Dora died only in 1980, but she was the very first female fishing boat skipper. the first one off the northeast coast. She lived there 1939, and what's that?
That's one of them. Yeah, like it's a.
Snake stone.
Yeah.
It's called a snake stone. It's actually a fossil called an ammonite, because Whitby is the fossil coast. Now, this time of year I wouldn't come here looking for fossils, but what I would do is come back in the summer and you go down on the beach and you can still find these kind of things. Yeah. Amazing. So it was worth coming out to see Dora's house. Dora's house waiting there for you. And I know I'm sufficiently loud enough to completely upset anybody that's living in one of these houses thinking, who's that rowdy walking past War House? And I apologise for that in retrospect. Just showing you one of me Robin Cousins moves. Look at this. What's he doing in his shed? What's he doing in his shed? There's another route down to where we came up. Shall we take it, or shall we keep going on down the avenues and alleyways? Right. And this is used as like a bar area for families who live here. You can imagine in sunny weather it's magnificent. This time of year people will not even think about going out there. And when you say to people, oh, but at Whitby it's all avenues and alleyways, people don't believe you until you actually come out to places like this.
I'm not. Stop saying that to me.
Yeah, you.
Right. Now, if this is where I think I am, it's this way. That's what I said. And there's the other route up that we told you. So we've done the roundabout route without having a horse and carriage to take us up there. So that's where. Now, we came up the front, so we'll go around this way. Now, one of the taverns that seemed to have most of the activity, and to be honest, fossil hunters once came with a whole bag full of fossils and just laid them on a table here in the ship. And that was in the 1950s. So you've got to remember how far fossils go back. They just walked to the coast, said, I don't believe this is the fossil coast, started picking, and they picked up hundreds and took them in there. And they did the BBC did a TV special on ammonites. Might still be on their YouTube somewhere. Worth a look, because there's hundreds of different types, and you had some professor saying, and this was the creature, and this is what they did, you know, fascinating. But who would have believed that less than 2 hours away from Tyneside, which is the reality, it's about just over an hour and a half. Yeah. Hang on, nudist alert.
Skirts and shirts. Haven't got any of them on.
No.
Obviously a good sale that, because even sold them ones.
This place here should be, there it is. You see this? Yeah. This is the wall that went directly into an old-fashioned bakery. Right. Now, a myth's, a legend's, a story. I can't find any historical proof for this story.
Right.
I tried to find it, to get it backed up, nobody would. What they said was that during the First World War, one of the buildings up here was used as an old-fashioned bakery. And during the war, they couldn't get any decent meat. And they started eating cats, dogs, rats, literally any squirrels, any kind of food, and then they'd just slice and dice, stick them in a pie, happy days. Now, like any good conspiracy story, I can believe that some butchers would do it. I can imagine, you know, I'm not saying these guys, but I could see it happening in a time of need when there's people offering a ton of money. I can see it. However, it was also said that they were starting to visit local cemeteries. And there was the possibility that that might have led to another way to use a body other than have it rot in the ground. Why waste the meat? And there's an argument for that. Let's face it. I bet you've had a nibble of somebody in your time.
Yeah, not in that way. Not as if I wanted to eat them.
Speak for yourself. And there you go. Oh, hang on, you might be able to see one. I want to say, now that's just crystals. You can get crystals anyway. I want to see an ammonite. No, the windows are. They got any ammonites?
No, the skull isn't possible on this.
Ah, no, it doesn't look like. What a shame. Perfect shop to sell them. Let's dance down. Oh! This building, Whitby Mission and Seafarers Centre. Now, back in the 1800s, this was the old Seamen's Mission. It says that it still is, but the Seamen's Mission back in the day essentially meant that this building here, any captains, boatswains, any officers of rank, because you know you had captains, lieutenants, boatswains, they could come to the Seamen's Mission, and even after their career ended, they could come here and they'd put them up for as long as they wanted putting up. So a number of seamen died here. So you've got it.
Hang on, that's just empty.
That's where it sounded.
It is from there.
That was cool. Getting a nibble every now and then.
Paradise Yard.
But you were allowed to come here and spend some time. So watch the windows, Kenny. Check them out, man. Seamen's Mission. Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah, the old boatman's shelter where old Seamen's Mission was haunted by a man called Captain William Snell. He died here. He was famous because he was once marooned. Have you heard of him?
No, didn't you tell a story the other day?
William Snell.
No. About paradise. The paradise tree.
Yes, on
And I've seen
Tuesday.
Paradise Yard on there.
I think that's coincidental, but it's cool.
It is.
Because when the Germans started putting trees into people's houses that were decorated like the pagan style,
Yeah.
pinched by the Christians, when they started putting them into people's houses, they called them paradise trees because the tree was resembling to what all trees look like in heaven,
Right. Yeah.
like how they know. But talk about William Snell just
on.
for a second. I'm going to impress you.
Come on.
William Snell died there. He was an old sea captain,
Right.
and he came back here to die. He was walking with a crutch, and his leg was eaten away.
Right.
He ate it.
He ate his own leg.
He was put adrift on a lifeboat. 3 members of his crew died. Some people think that he might have
Ate them.
eaten them when they passed, but it got to the point where he was starving to death, so he started cutting pieces of his own thigh and eating them and trying to get nourishment from the liquid of the blood and vessels inside. So when he made land, most of his thigh was missing.
Right.
And he's openly admitted, he says, I ate it to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it kept him alive for a week longer than anybody else had survived. But he got back here, promptly died. The man who ate himself, William Snell. Seamen's Mission. What a story, eh? Tremendous. Whitby's one of them places, man. In fact, there's William now. Which one are you looking at? Oh, it's corking. Gorilla Skull XL.
Oh, it's Pinocchio.
Piratey ones over there as well.
Yeah. Look at those.
Beautiful.
Pirates right for me.
And there's a kind of a Jamaican, let's roll a spliff kind of Santa kick in there. Absolutely. Happy days. And we're at the Jolly Sailors now, which again is one of those built. Look at the skulls in all directions here. They can see what they make their money out of for sure. There's a beach up there as well. Now, there was a battle, a group of smugglers apparently had a fight over some booty. A boat was being landed on the beach just at the top of here and just around the corner. And what they were trying to do was to work out a price that they would go to the various taverns and inns that were here at the time to see who was going to sell it and how much money they'd get for the goods that they had on store. And there was a massive battle on the beach between about 20 or 30 people who all wanted to do the deal. And by the time they were finished, 3 were dead, 24 were injured, and the winner essentially took all the bits and pieces and came around all of these inns and taverns trying to sell them and make some kind of percentage profit for himself. Haggard's Gate. If you come here, look for Haggard's Gate when you do, because Haggard's Gate, just down there, yeah, it's just along there. Haggard's Gate is where the press gangs used to gather before they came into town to go hunting. We're heading back over the bridge.
It's got icier by the minute.
Absolutely has. Tony, if the camera footage is not quite as smooth as normal,
Sliding all over the
Tony's slipping and sliding.
I would walk up here.
Yeah, stick on the side of there, Tony. It's slightly easier.
You've got a reel to go, haven't you?
But there's a stave here, and I'm not sure which side of the road it's on. I think it's down there, Tony. This way, to your right, along there. Down there, mate. It's a stave, and it's called St Anne's Stave. And there's an amazing story attached to it. It's the ghost of Dandy Jim. This one comes back from the time late 1700s. The son of a merchant, Jim Robertson, moved to Whitby in the summer of 1799, and he was... Yeah. Beautiful. Polar bear. So, anyway, this Jim Robertson moved to Whitby. It was 1799, and he was considered a bit of a dandy, splashing his wealth. And he met a girl, a commoner, and asked for her hand in marriage. The parents refused, so she had money, so she ran off with him anyway. He died of fever in the first month of the voyage. This is an awful story. So he was rich. She thought he was her best chance. And so he smuggled her on board. Now, for those of you that, you know the phrase show a leg?
Yes.
Do you know where it comes from?
No.
Show a leg was what sea captains demanded because people would sneak their wives and girlfriends on board ship.
Right.
So in a hammock, the captain would come out and ask everybody to show a leg to make sure it was a male leg. And if they found a female leg, they'd put the woman off at the next port.
Right.
But this particular story, this guy, the dandy, was away on board a ship. He died of fever in the first month. Now, he was the owner of the vessel. Right. So what happened was she remained on board ship with like 90 other men for a year, was savagely raped by numerous ones of them. Yeah. Eventually she lost her life and they just threw her overboard. And when it came time to tell the story, say whatever happened to her, they actually said, oh, well, she just died at the same time that he died. but the story came out later that she'd been raped by pretty much the entire crew over and over again, and that was the end of her. So not every story's a romantic tale of happy do. Now, can we just send you a message? And thank you, Whitby. Merry Christmas to you. Amazing. We've got a whole batch of people that we want to introduce you to. We're going in to for part 2 of our trilogy. This is like Star Wars.
It is, isn't it?
It's like Star Wars. So for part 2, for the second part of our trilogy, we're going to meet a whole batch of people with some ghostly stories. I'll tell you a few more about Whitby. And part 3 of our trilogy is a ghost hunt in the most haunted place in Whitby. Sound good? Come and join us anyway. And the dog was drawn to the scary place. Here we are.
Good stabling. I like that.
Absolutely. And that looks like the original sign too, you know. Smoke and club rooms. Now they said that they've had regular, they've had regular ghost sightings, audible, visual. It all's been happening in here. We're going to get some of the stories. We're going to share them with you. We're going to talk to some people who've travelled around York. We want to find out what they've seen and where they've been. So we'll rock on, see what they've got to say. Right.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Let's do it. Hi everybody. Whenever you think of spending Christmas away from home, what I always imagine in my head is sitting in an old quaint pub or hotel. This is both. We're in the White Horse and Griffin Hotel, and you're in front of a roaring fire, which is just the essence of Christmas. We hope you're having a wonderful, fabulous, incredible time. And we have so many things for you to see. And one of the things that I would advise that you got the chance to go and check out, there's a bench. And it's Bram Stoker's bench. Now, Bram Stoker wrote Dracula. And obviously, we're in Whitby, a place synonymous with the Dracula story, with Dracula's coffin being washed up on the beach and eventually being carried into the town, and Dracula rises from the dead. And we know it's fiction, and there's no problem with it being fiction in any shape or form. We're happy because it's cool fiction, you have to admit. But the bench where she sits, it's now been named after her. It's her bench, taking nothing away from the woman. Bram Stoker's bench apparently is the place where she was sitting. She looked across the harbour to the hill on the opposite side where you see the Abbey and then the church. A lot of people think that the Abbey and church are one thing. It's not. St Mary's Church is next door. However, Bram Stoker saw this whole image. He saw the water piling onto the shore. And in her mind's eye, she saw the ship carrying the coffin get destroyed. And the only thing that survives and is washed up on the shore is the coffin with the living dead inside it. I mean, for the time she wrote that, it's quite a story, quite an imagination. And it's said that regularly people have not just seen Bram Stoker sitting on that bench, they've actually said hello to her and she's replied. So if her spirit regularly returns to that bench, it's a bench you should go and have a look for. And maybe sit down and see what she saw. And then probably dig out either a video or a film, or maybe read the book. Cool background. And of course, we mentioned that 1,000 vampires gathered here to break the Guinness World Record. And just how incredible and how cool is that? Because if you think about it, how many other places, if you say we're going to go for a world record, we want 1,000 people who drink blood together all in one spot, how many places do you think could actually make that happen? That's the thing. So that's a place I would recommend that you go and have a look at. Giving you plenty of time to edit. And then on the hillside, not far from the whalebones, this incredible symbol of Whitby town, there's also a gun battery, and it looks like it's something that's been put in place to defend the shore, and it actually isn't. The gun that's in the gun battery was taken from a ship in World War I that they found on the bottom of the bay. They took the gun from it, put it on display, making it look as if it's been transformed. Instead of being a ship meant to fire upon us, we're using its own gun and facing it out to sea. And it's just interesting because kind of like the northeast coast all the way up pretty much to Berwick, there's thousands of wrecks in this part of the world. Now, even while we've been here, we've gone over Whitby Bridge. Now, the river, or the harbour that becomes a river, is the River Esk. It's a very famous river here in Yorkshire. And the swing bridge isn't a swing bridge, it's an opening bridge to allow boats to and fro. But on that very bridge, Whitby Bridge, in 1351, it was a toll bridge, and anybody that passed it in either direction had to pay a certain amount of money. So most people who traded on one side would never go to the other side because money was hard won back in those kind of days. Now, the king at the time was King Edward III, and the bridge became a toll road because of what happened during the English Civil War. The English Civil War kicked off, and obviously it's Oliver Cromwell against King Charles I, and apparently the toll road, or the bridge, and let's face it, whoever's in charge gets the money from the tolls from the toll road, and apparently they had roundheads on the bridge. Now, there are a great many areas in Yorkshire where the roundheads were in the minority. Now, with respect to that, you found that the roundheads were in charge. They were taking as much money as they possibly could. And when the roundheads heard that there was a fortune to be made, because let's face it, any farmer, any merchant travelling from one side to the other, they would benefit from it. They decided that they were going to take it instead. So what they did was the Cavaliers came, and apparently 90 men killed. Cavaliers won, and apparently they tied the captain of the Roundheads up, placed an anvil in his lap, and dropped him off the centre of the bridge. So next time you walk over the bridge, you've got a pretty corking story to remember, because presumably somewhere down there in the silt where they will dredge it regularly, obviously because boats are still using it, then you'll discover the crushed and battered remains of a Roundhead captain. So just remember that next time that you are tootling out and about. Now, if you come across to this side of the Whitby Bridge, one of the first turnings you come to on the right-hand side is called Grape Lane. Now, this was the place that every sailor would sing sea shanties about and travel all the way to Whitby for, because it was the area that had literally hundreds of ladies of ill repute, and the sailors would call it Grope Lane, not Grape Lane. Now, a young girl apparently wanted, in one of the most famous ghost stories that there abounds is about Grape Lane, because a young girl decided that she wanted to warm up her dad's supper, and she was working during the day as a maid, but she had his supper. She'd made it in the kitchen of the house where she was working. So she went along to a baker's on Grape Lane where her best friend worked and said, "Can I stick this in an oven?" And she said, "Of course you can." So she sticks it in the oven, and then she starts chatting with her friend, and chatting and chatting and chatting like you do, and eventually totally forgot about it. It started a fire in the bakery oven. The bakery burnt down. Both girls were burnt alive. Half the lane, you got to remember, back in the day, a lot of the buildings were wood-based, and half the street went up. And according to myth and legend, you can still see the girls, and occasionally late at night, you can hear their screams as they were trying to put the fire out to protect their livelihoods, really, because first of all, the woman shouldn't have been away from a business that she was housekeeping for, and the girl working in the bakehouse shouldn't have put somebody else's food in the oven. But they both perished, but they both said to still be about. Grape Lane, don't get groped. Nobody's that lucky. Are they in weather like this? Nobody's that lucky. Now here we are at the White Horse and Griffin, and in 1691, right here, the original landlady was a woman by the name of Mrs. Bowler. Now Mrs. Bowler was one of those women that, as young men growing up, we probably feared more than anything else, because they were totally in control. They spoke to you as if they were God and you were scratching in the sand and the soil. Strong and often angry woman, apparently. But you see, if you go back to those times and you realize the kind of folk that would be coming here, there would be, because this was the first coaching house, you'd have a lot of well-to-do people, because nobody of low status would be able to afford such things. The local sailors and fisher folk would leave this place alone. This place had stables and stabling behind the building, so therefore it would attract those of wealth. It also attracted highwaymen, one in particular, and it wasn't Dick, was the other guy. Amazing story based here. However, Mrs. Bowler, strong and wordy and not bearing fools gladly, she was in the cellar here, and she slipped on some steps and cracked her skull and died. And it's said by a lot of the people who visit this building, and more interestingly, staff who work here that quite often, and it's the last thing you want in a bar and hotel, but an unwelcome presence. And the thing that I actually quite like is she, to this day, apparently still makes men who act in a bombastic fashion behave themselves. And you can imagine her doing precisely that when she worked here. A feeling of being unwelcome, even dread. And as recently as the 1950s, there are 3 rooms that are particularly haunted. And until 1951, they were offering people who stayed here £50. Now, back in the 50s, that was a lot of money. They offered them £50 if they would be willing to stay in any of the 3 rooms. We are going to be based in all 3 of those rooms a little bit later on, and you can watch it live also, so get ready for that. Now, there's 2 buildings here. There is the Griffin Hotel and there is the White Horse. Now, the Griffin, the first coaching in to take carriages from Whitby to York. Prior to that, this whole side of the country was very, very difficult for people to travel in and out of, other than by ship. And it was still an inn up until 1939. James Cook stayed here. William Scoresby, the man who invented the crow's nest, met with James Cook, and they both planned voyages here in front of a roaring fire. So that's pretty damn cool. Charles Dickens stayed here, just as a matter of course. And it closed in 1939 and it became derelict. And the day that it closed, one of those kind of spooky coincidences happened. The Battle of the River Plate. Now, it may well be that you don't know much about that, but it was one of the initial conflicts that would lead to greater conflicts between Germany and the Allies. And the very day that the Battle of the River Plate happened, this place closed. And the man who captained the ship, the British ship that was trapped on that river, had visited Whitby 6 weeks before travelling out there, and guess where he stayed? Here. Now, that's a bit of spooky history. Again, it was derelict from World War II until the 1980s, and this whole building was used to store lobster pots. And a lot of the fisher folk took it for granted that if they brought their kit in, they didn't want it stolen, they could get it in here, lock up all the doors and just leave it. But they didn't have a roof on it. But if lobster pots get wet, that's the whole point. So it wasn't too much of a big deal. However, in the early 1970s, when this place was being used as that whole thing, apparently a school trip came to Whitby. And when it was coming down, you remember the roof's off, and the building was getting very badly water damaged. One of the children looked up at one of the upstairs windows and screamed and said that there was the face of an old woman staring out the window. Now, the weird thing, and the thing that's coolest about it, is the teacher saw the face too. And when they got back to their classroom the following day, they were from York, like a day trip out in a coach kind of thing. And when they got back in the classroom, they asked how many children had seen the old woman in the window. 9 of them said that they had. 9 of them plus the teacher, plus the girl who originally saw the face. And you don't get that many people being able to verify anything like that. Other people that have stayed here, if you're interested in the stars, Michael Caine stayed here. Brian Ferry regularly stayed here. Linda Gray from Dallas, I don't know, I was at Dynasty, I think it was Dallas. Sue Ellen, I seem to remember. She stayed here on 4 separate occasions. Ainsley Harriet, Gary Rhodes, 2 fat ladies, all the foodies have stayed here because of the standard of the cuisine, which is testament to a kind of cool place. In 1969, Margaret Crowe stayed here.
She is a woman who you may not have heard of, but she was very, very into Bram Stoker and the whole Dracula thing. A lot of people are. She wanted to experience Whitby, doing all of the things that Bram Stoker did when she came here. She travelled up from London to do that. On her first night, she was experiencing heavy breathing in the bedroom. She was alone, I hasten to add, but she was experiencing heavy breathing in the bedroom. And just as she was falling asleep, a heavy bang right by her bed. She then looked at the curtains in the darkness and saw a figure move past the curtains from one side to the other. She ended up staying awake the whole night. And on getting up, she discovered that her suitcase and all of the contents had been scattered across the bedroom, and half of them were actually on the bed that she slept in across that night. So that's Margaret Crow's story. And apparently, to my knowledge, I don't think Bram Stoker did actually experience any of that. But it's quite cool to know that other things have happened in this building. The most interesting one I've kind of saved to last, and it's about John Nevison. It's a man called Swift Nick. Now, he's probably the most well-known, if you lived hereabouts, highwayman that existed and stayed here. And you've got to remember, if a highwayman is successful, a road robber, anybody that robbed on foot was a cut purse. And I've explained this to you before, but people used to hold and carry their money not in bags. People didn't have handbags or man bags or any of that. They wore their money tied on a string in a pouch from their belt. So they were called cut purses because they'd carry a blade in their hand. They'd intentionally bump into somebody and take their purse. Now, John Nevison, fairly famous. He worked the Great North Road and along the coast around Whitby. And once he used to apparently be a clerk in a town called Whitby near Sheffield. Once a soldier in the regiment. Now, you know, we talked about Humpty Dumpty actually having a grave. The canon who worked for the church here has a grave up at St. Mary's there on the hill. Humpty Dumpty's grave. Unbelievable. You can see his Humpty Dumpty's grave. However, links with other fairy stories. John Nevison, Swift Nick the Highwayman, was in a regiment under the command of the Grand Old Duke of York, which is just to have those two things even in a paragraph together, I think it's pretty cool. His father died. He came back here to Yorkshire, where he robbed, wounded and terrorised, never raped. He was one of the few highwaymen that actually lived up to that. Most people think highwaymen were gorgeously handsome and, oh, you look fine in those stocking tights and what have you. Most of them were brutes and thieves, and they were not, as you would imagine. Occasionally they would cut fingers off to get people's rings. They would physically assault women. John Nevison, not so. He did torture men. He did a bit of brutalising. His modus operandi was he would wait at a crossroads usually so that he had 3 ways to go if trouble arrived, or if there were armed people on coaches, and they started doing that towards the end of that whole time. John Nevison was not a particularly, he was well known, but he wasn't a great highwayman, and he ended up being arrested and he was sentenced to transportation, which meant Australia. But he was cunning, and he ended up on board ship for highway robbery and horse theft. And the tall ship that he was on stopped at Tangiers. And when it left, John Nevison wasn't on it anymore. He managed to get off the boat and he headed straight back to Yorkshire. Stole another horse, started robbing people again. And they said that he slit the throat of a guard on board the ship to escape. So he had another crime added to all the other ones that he had there. Now, when he got back here to Whitby, he had 3 women that were very fond of him, and he began using them as cut purses. So there was a little money machine beginning. He's robbing people on the road, they're robbing people on the streets. And he got caught again and hanged. Now that's got to be the end of him. Oh no, he was hanged a bit, and then he'd persuaded one of his cut purse girls to get her father, who was apparently very well spoken, to pretend he was a doctor. And he went up to the hanging body and said, "He's dead, I'll cut him down and I'll take care of him." Stuck him over his shoulder, carried him off. And of course, he didn't die, not at all. So his body was released and made a startling recovery. And he started robbing again in Yorkshire and becoming, this was the time that he started doing things properly, and he did things very well. A constable by the name of Fletcher was called to single him out because he was committing so many crimes that it was felt that he had to be stopped. So Constable Fletcher, he said, "Leave it to me, I'll sort him out." And he spotted him. Not very far, actually, he managed to trail him from Whitby to Wakefield. I followed his trail. Spotted him in Wakefield, confronted him, demanded that he surrender, and Neveson stabbed him 11 times, and he died at Neveson's feet. His last robbery was on Church Street, Whitby. Where are we? Yeah. Church Street, Whitby. The top end of the road, a coach arriving in the early hours, coming down to a coaching inn. Where are we? Once again, it seems all roads lead here. The coach, it was early in the morning, it was about 2 in the morning. It was due here at 10 o'clock that night. Didn't get in due to weather till 2 in the morning. And it was stopped and it was robbed by Neveson. The driver was knocked unconscious and pistol whipped because he was trying to defend the people on his coach. So Neveson did that and then robbed everybody inside it, taking jewellery, coin, and also weapons, 2 hats, because he kind of liked looking fancy. He was arrested after a tip-off from a landlady, not the landlady here, but a landlady at a coach house in Wakefield, where he decided that was the place he was going to hide. He was tried at York, hanged at Knavesmire, which was the main area where people who are arrested and tried in York get hanged. That was 1685. He's buried in an unmarked grave. And the thought is, because some people say they see him walking in a fancy fashion down the centre of Church Road, Church Street here. But they think he is a ghost or in spirit showing himself because he was so proud of this awful thing that he did. Because if you're going to do anything, even if it's a bad thing, he seemed to want to be internationally known if possible. And the weird thing was the whole Dick Turpin thing made highwaymen up and down the country think, this is for me, I've got a horse, I can do this. And Neveson wanted fame probably more than anything else. And the fact that he didn't get it, and they spat on his memory by putting him in an unmarked grave, is that enough to create the kind of angst for you to come back? I don't know. We didn't see him when we were out there. Maybe he'll pop up a little bit later tonight, you never know. Fingers crossed. Hi everybody, well I'm not alone as you can tell. I have a hostess with a mostess. It's Sophie who's joining us. Thanks for coming down for a chat, Sophie.
No problem.
And thanks again for helping us sort all of this out as well, because we've got the 3 haunted rooms with the 3 dumbest people.
Yeah.
And you've been here a while. You were here longer even than the current owner. I gather.
No, not the current owner. I replaced the ex-manager, so I've been here nearly 2 years now.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
But did you work here before that as well?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I worked here.
There you
yeah.
go.
I
So
was 18. I worked here. Before,
we know
yeah.
more about you than you know about you. So, this building, great history.
Yeah.
I found out highwayman history about this place, which is very cool. We found out a few stories, a few things that have happened on streets nearby, and we've been going around telling those tales. You've been here a while. You've experienced something. You told us that in the room where I've been placed, if you look out of the bathroom window, you'll see where you saw a ghost. Tell us a story. What happened?
Yeah, so in the courtyard outside, so that used to be where they used to take the horses up to stable.
Right.
There used to be a lot of kids, stable girls and stable boys. If you look out sometimes, you do see people running around out there. I thought I saw someone breaking into the owner's car one day. Went out to investigate. There's nobody there. So
do you see it like people as if they're solid, or do you see a black figure? Or
no, you can see full people out there.
modern dress? Or?
No, they're not in modern dress, they're just in scruffy clothes, and it just looks like there's people just walking around out there. But there never is, so you don't bother going out anymore.
People staying here.
Yes.
Let's talk about them first.
Yeah.
People, and even one or two of the guests that we've spoken to have said, well, I feel a bit uneasy. Actually, I thought we heard somebody walking across the floor. And you're thinking, how commonplace is it that people come to you and say, is there an issue?
So since you've been sat up here, the people sat below you on the table have said they felt a cold draft in between their feet, so they've gone and moved. And I said,
Because this is toasty warm kind of place, isn't it?
I've just gone in the kitchen and a pair of kitchen tongs have flew at me, so I don't know what you've been saying, but thanks.
Wow.
That's just in the last hour.
So this is kind of vivid for everybody.
Yeah.
Does
all the
everybody
time.
experience the same thing?
No. So we've had, about 2 months ago, we had people ring me at 7 in the morning saying they're really sorry they had to leave. There was someone stood in their room that wouldn't move and wouldn't leave, so they left at 2 in the morning. A lot of things are just grabbing legs, grabbing arms. There was one that was pretty bad a few weeks ago where someone couldn't get up because someone was sat on their chest, which is a bit scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different for everybody. People just see things or hear things. A lot of people see things in the mirror going down into the restaurant.
Yeah.
But it's when it's in their rooms that they get more scared.
And I've
about
noticed
things.
that in most of the rooms there are mirrors anyway.
Yeah.
And most people who deal with this kind of thing know that you can see spirit more clearly in reflection than you can in real life.
Yeah.
So having a mirror in a room that you already think's hot is just kind of asking for trouble as well.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But that's a good thing. What's the most vivid thing that anybody's told you? You have the chest thing. Now you could say, playing devil's advocate, it's that sleep paralysis thing where you
Yeah.
just have a bit of a panic attack.
Yeah.
You've heard the place is haunted.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. What's the most vivid thing that somebody's come up to you and said, you'll never guess what?
It's probably the people that left saying there was someone stood in our room, in the corner. There was someone stood there that would not leave. Then they had to physically, like, that wasn't in a reflection, that was someone stood in front
there
of
in
them.
the room.
Yeah.
And
that
they
was
obviously saw it clearly, and there's two
Yeah.
people saying the same
exactly
thing.
the same thing, and they've both had to leave because they were that scared. They ran out of the hotel.
Right, let's now talk about actual characters, because one of the characters that I was made aware of was Mrs. Bowler, who
the landlady.
apparently was the landlady, one of the
Yeah.
original landladies here,
Yeah.
who was a bit of a tartar.
Yeah, so we don't see her a lot. She apparently grabs people downstairs. I've never experienced this, but a lot of guests have. Apparently she squeezes you if she doesn't like it. So she fell down the stairs outside and smashed her head open.
Yeah.
So she
that's
died
right,
that way. There's the young girl that died in the cellar. She got pregnant to a boy that she shouldn't have, so he pushed her down the stairs. She died in the cellar, but again, none of these stories I've ever heard of. It's all different things.
The thing that I was talking to one of your guys, and he was saying a lot of people have experienced similar things, but we keep hearing the story a different way. The reverse I've heard. Everybody that spoke about Mrs. Bowler tells the same thing. She was a bit of a Mrs. Bouquet. She was a bit.
Yeah.
She was kind of strong-willed,
Yeah.
and bossy. And I would have thought if you were dealing with clientele that were kind of upper class, because we're talking people who could afford to travel by coach, essentially, and coaches in the 1600s, cheap. I can't imagine how much money you'd have to be able to do that. I presume you'd have to have a degree of authority to be able to deal with people who had really high expectations all the time. That story has never changed, and the fact that she slept, and it would be so easy to make her death da-da-da, but no, she slipped, she fell, she cracked her head. Stuff happens. So every time I've heard that story, it's always been to the core. Why would you think she would be downstairs rather than on the upper floors where presumably the wealthy would spend more time?
So it's not the rooms upstairs weren't really for wealthier people. They were for, like, well, we had like Charles Dickens and Captain Cook and stuff there, but it was more to come and recruit people to go to work here. It wasn't really the wealthier people that were coming here. So she was looking after troublemakers that were getting drunk.
All right, because that makes more sense then, doesn't it?
Yeah, she wasn't looking after the wealthy people that got on. I think she was more looking after the men downstairs that were getting drunk and ruckus. And
these are all of the people that would be looking after the horses, dealing with the bar.
Looking for work, yeah. So I think she had a lot to deal with.
Makes sense. You mentioned the little girl, Mrs. Bowler.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be the spirit of this guy called John Neverson, who was called Slick Nick. Right. He was a highwayman. And we know that his last job was here. He robbed a coach at the top of Church Street. He eventually then had to leg it and got arrested in Wakefield.
He made it far.
There you go, yeah, he did a good job. Yeah. However, he was followed the whole way, and then, so it wasn't a good move. And he ended up eventually being hanged and buried in an unmarked grave. So the history of the guy we know was here, and he robbed a coach that was heading to the coach house on Church Street.
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah.
So that being the case, we got Neverson maybe here, supposed to be, because he spent a lot of his money here because he was robbing people and spending their money, not his own money. Yeah. We've got the little girl, we've got Mrs. Bowler. Any other ghosts we should be looking for here then?
Apparently there's a lot. We have a lot of ghost stories. They're the main ones that are apparently a fact that we know happened. Like, we know the landlady died here, and we know that woman got pushed down. The other things, it could be anything. There's so many stories.
It's just you've been here such a long time. Yeah. The imprint, even if you just do it generationally from the 1690s, I mean, that's a lot of time. Yeah. And because it's an open building and it's always been a public, except the time it was derelict from 39. Yeah. It's always had people travelling to and fro and deaths here.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been a time when people have said it isn't haunted.
No, but people in rooms have died here.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's a lot of the things happen by the same ghosts. I think it's all different things. Like, we've seen, there's been a few times where we've heard children, like actual children, laughing in the kitchen. There's been me and my restaurant manager stood in there and we can hear this kid laughing. We're like, where is this child coming from? That was just like a one-off. Or he's seen in the mirror, he's seen a guy dressed in a military uniform before. So there's loads of them. I don't think you see the same thing. There's probably hundreds of them. But it's Whitby.
This is the thing.
Coming from anywhere.
Because when we were talking originally about Mrs. Bowler, it's like, what do you want the woman who's in charge of a hotel, pub, restaurant, and all the things that you are? Mm-hmm. You don't want an unwelcoming person, and yet you're happy to say, oh, if you come here, mind, there's this thing that might fill you with dread.
Oh, yeah, I love telling guests that it's haunted. It's my favourite bit of the job. But we get a lot of people that come here because it is haunted as well. They come here because of the stories.
But I haven't seen it massively advertised as like a haunted venue, and yet to everybody that I've spoken to who lives in and around Whitby, mm-hmm. they've all said, oh, you want to...
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, hang on, the Abbey?
Yeah.
St Mary's?
So we've a lot of our stoneworks from the Abbey as well, which is
That might be part of the
that might be
part of the dance
problem.
right
Yeah.
there.
So,
I mean, what got you into it? Because you sound like you take it on as, well, you just grabbed me hair. And it just sounds too easy. What's your background in all of this stuff?
I didn't know about the haunted thing until I'd seen a few things, and everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, it's a bit haunted and whatever." Like 2 years later, it just doesn't bother you. Like we have to sometimes go upstairs because all the lights have flicked off. And it's just an annoyance sometimes rather than anything else.
Yeah, because I would imagine if you've already done the job and you switched all the lights off or
Yeah.
you put the fire off or whatever,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they're back on and you're just on your way home.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like,
I stay here, so I'm staying here tonight.
Right.
I stayed here a few nights ago in your room, in fact.
happy days.
And I just got in bed. I think we had a big party and it was 1:30 in the morning. I was back at work at 7 or 8
Right.
o'clock. And the telly kept flicking off. I was like, I just want to chill out and watch telly.
Yeah.
And it flicked off, so I go and flick it back on. And then you find yourself talking to them. You're like, please stop doing this. And it's like, oh, forget it, I'll just go to sleep. It's not scary anymore. It used to be, like with the guests and stuff, like, oh, just give it a rest, it's fine.
Yeah, but to some of these people, like, and I must admit, I did kind of unsettle the couple that came in and had a listen to kind of what we were doing. And I did say good night, and they said good night back, and I said, I hope you're alone in there. And the woman just kind of looked back and went, night. Just sort of, you know for a fact that's going to be a phone call to you at some point during the
That's
night.
why we have the duty. I have a phone that I have to keep with me on a night time so people ring if they need me.
Blimey.
It's just an
24/7 job yours.
Yeah.
I love the way how matter of fact it is, and I think people who work in a venue where things become commonplace do get kind of blasé with it because not again,
Yeah.
and it becomes just part of the job.
Yeah,
But it's a weird part of the job.
It is a weird part, but they're easy to deal with some of the customers. To be fair. Which is,
What's the worst thing you've had to deal with then?
oh, you don't want to know.
Oh, I really do.
Yeah, honestly, it only happens sometimes on a night. It's the cameras that get us a lot. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this room. So we've seen like a lot of gold things flying around in here. There's a guy that sits on that table with.
Because you've got a
Yes, we have security cameras that we watch in the kitchen. All 3 cameras used to stop at an exact time, minute and second during the night and then start again, which is weird. But yeah, it's just like I'm trying to find something on my camera.
and you've seen orbs and stuff flying
a
around.
lot in here, yeah. There's a big circle here that they all go into.
Have you noticed whether some people say that orbs are just dust. And I understand that because if you see dust in front of a camera, they move like dust. But have you seen the circles move in what appears to be an intelligent manner?
Yeah, these are gold as well.
Gold?
They're a gold colour, and they all always transport into one place, and it's in there. It's like a circle in the floor. They all go in the same place.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I wonder what that's all about. That's
So I can't wait for tonight after talking about all this all night.
fascinating. No, it's great. It's great. Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, it'll be what it'll be. You're gonna be kind enough to switch all the lights off, and I think most of the public are.
They're all gone. Yeah.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
And we'll be as quiet as we can in our 3 rooms. I think there's people in the rooms around our rooms.
You're in. So there's you above you, isn't there?
And Kenny above me.
I'm next door to you, and you're below me. So there's no other rooms in that bit, really.
So therefore, if we are talking, it's not going to
You're
cause
fine.
you
You're
anything.
absolutely fine.
Because I was just concerned that we were going to do a whispery show.
No, you're fine. You can talk. All that's where you are is just me and you 3.
Right, brilliant.
So
Okay.
you're fine.
Well, we might come knocking middle of the
You
night.
won't.
We'll try and send as many things as we can out of ours through into yours.
So you've got the room with the little hatch as well, haven't you? That seems to fall off a lot when in the middle of the night. So just watch that.
Oh, great. Thanks for that.
Is there anything up there?
It's a storage thing, but above me I have the loft with all the water heaters and stuff, which goes into your little bit, so you can you can crawl through.
You know that story I've just told about the holes in the ceiling? There you go. All 3 will be there then. That's how that's going to run.
But yeah, hopefully you'll see something or hear something tonight.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But hey, so thanks, Dan.
No, no problem.
Bless you,
Thank
Dan.
you very
Cheers.
much. That's great.
Hey, this
Thank
woman
you.
has been super kind and gave us our first Yorkshire cuddle, which is very special. It's very good.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
So, we've got every reason to believe that tonight we're in for an absolute treat. And that's the third part of the Scary Christmas trilogy. Don't miss it. We're going to be checking out the scariest and most haunted place in all of Whitby. We've heard of tugs, we've heard of children playing, officers, figures in mirrors, highwaymen, Mrs. Bowler, young girl pushed, pregnant, down the stairs into the cellar. We're going into the cellar. We have the 3 most haunted rooms. And we have Sophie, who's already just ran away, escaped and locked herself in the nearest room to all 3 of us. What we're going to get